Welcome. So, this video is going to be a little bit about therapy and how it applies to my journey with depression and anxiety, and really how helpful it's been for me. More helpful than I would have ever thought. And, one of the main points of this video is going to be how I thought therapy wasn't for me, or I just never thought it would be a good fit. And I learned some lessons that the biggest lesson I learned that somebody mentioned to me is therapy is kind of like dating. You have to find the right fit. I never realized that, and that helped me a ton to put in the effort to find the right fit. And the other thing that I've realized and I've noticed is that fit can change. Um, just because a certain therapist or a certain type of therapy works or doesn't work for you right now doesn't mean that might not change, and you might need something different in the future. Um, and that's also helpful for once you do find a therapist to always, like with medication, with therapy, all that, and just with yourself, it's always good to check in and evaluate, are the things, am I, still getting what I need to out of whatever I'm doing in life, or are adjustments needed? I think that's a big lesson that I've learned in my life and dealing with, anxiety, depression, to really not get complacent and be proactive at all times. Um, so therapy for me, I went when I was younger, more, cognitive behavioral type therapy. And for those who aren't familiar with that, that's basically, um, please do your own research on this, because this will just be like off the top of my head. But it's kind of like identifying the things, like for example, like specific fears that you have, like social anxiety. It might be like public speaking. Identifying those things, and then um, basically formulating a plan for how do you expose yourself to that little by little. That's where like the behavioral part comes in. Formulating a plan to get over that fear. So for example, it might be um, and part of it is the talking through it part of um, for example, what's the worst that can happen if you stutter during a speech, and being realistic about that, and then also finding ways, to um, slowly expose yourself to the things you fear, and see that you can build up, um, I guess, strength in a way, um, to deal with those things little by little. So that's the cognitive behavioral therapy that I've had when I was younger, and it didn't really do much for me. Um, so that was my first take with therapy, and then recently I went back into therapy earlier this year. I tried with two different therapists, and it wasn't a good match, and then I kind of just stopped again because I was like, it's not really helpful. And also the thought process for me was like, I'm very self-aware, and I almost felt like I was like, not that I was too smart, but I'm just like, I know what they're trying to do, and it's not going to help. Which in many ways was real, was true. For example, like one of them talked about, why don't we do like a gratitude exercise? And yes, that can be helpful for some people, but the place I was in, I had things to be grateful for, and I was grateful for them. But sitting down and making a list of, being grateful for having, the exercise was kind of like, look around your room and name 10 things you're grateful for. Name 10 more. Now name 10 more. And the point is, there's always something to be grateful for. That didn't really help me. That's not what I needed at the time. So, that's why I stopped going. And the other, that was one of the therapists. The other therapist was more of just like talking things through, which for me is kind of helpful, but it just wasn't a good personality fit. It wasn't a good personality fit for me, this person. We just didn't click sometimes, and that's why it can be like dating. Sometimes you just click with people and you understand each other, sometimes you don't. So with this, it was clear, and we got to sessions where it was like there's nothing left to talk about. So for me, I was kind of like, it can even make you feel bad because you're like, well, what am I supposed to do now? Or like, how is this, why isn't this helping me? So, you know, knowing that it's like dating and like you have to find the right fit and you have to put the effort in is one of the most important lessons for me in therapy. And I finally decided to try again earlier this year, and I finally found a really good fit. And for me, it was more about finding somebody, one that I click with, that I could easily talk to. That I found that fit, and I think that speaks to like different, personality types, and just, you don't know until you try whether you're gonna have that good fit with somebody. And then also the style of, whether it's like cognitive behavioral therapy or a bunch of different styles. This one, I don't know exactly what the term would be, but for me, it's just basic talk therapy of like, I talk about what I'm going through. And for me, the most important part is like getting a gauge of whether I'm engaging things in healthy ways, whether I'm seeing things the right way, like having somebody else to be like, what are your thoughts on this? Because dealing with depression and anxiety can be very hard sometimes to know, because of so many different things, especially the anxiety at times. And I found it very helpful. And there's small tools and stuff along the way, but basically it's just me talking about how my week went, and getting some feedback on that. And it's helpful for me to have somebody to just talk things out with. So, and also at some points, like actual tools or like things that can be helpful. So for me, that's been a really great fit. Recently, I found that I'm not sure if that's still the right fit, and this was literally like the last one or two sessions, just because my situation has changed, and I'm in a little bit of a different place with my depression and anxiety right now. But I'm gonna see what happens and adjust as needed. And also the important thing is not to just like drop something completely without, to be reasonable and like, find the support I need at the time, and not be like, not make any rash decisions. Just be like, well, this isn't working for me anymore, so I'm going to stop this completely. So I think what my therapist calls it is the wise mind of, sometimes we make these rash decisions, or like our depression, anxiety cloud us, and kind of, in a way, force us into these decisions and things that aren't really the best for us. Prime example is like isolating. The decision to isolate is usually not a healthy one for somebody with depression, especially. So therapy has been super, super helpful, and also in ways that have, interestingly, kind of unlocked some things for me. I've learned some things, and I'll just briefly speak on this. But I never really bought into these things come from childhood, and let's look at your childhood, and that's not what my therapist does at all. But through my experience of like feeling better with myself, and like starting to engage with people, and like with relatives, and I realized there were some misunderstandings that started happening, and long story short, that led me to like reevaluate a lot of things from the past, and to be in a better place to see things clearly. To be, I don't think I had like a traumatic childhood, for example, but I realized like there were things in childhood that I didn't get that probably I needed, as somebody who found had their first anxiety attack before the age of 18, and who dealt with depression and anxiety that early on. um, there were probably things that I needed. For example, like finding the right therapist, or finding the right medication, or being around, having people who understood me better or my condition better. Those things would have been helpful. I don't look back and really to blame people. It's more just to, accept, um, to understand, how I got to where I am, to learn from that, to like, not make the same mistakes of, for example, avoiding the discomfort at all times. That was me when I was younger. And things never get easier if you keep avoiding discomfort. Um, so I've learned a lot of things, and it opened my mind up to be like, um, to, yeah, just be more open-minded about the things that might be contributing or have contributed to me still having anxiety and depression now. Um, and to also know for the current moment, like the type of support I need, and maybe some of the conversations to have with people that could be helpful. Um, because obviously some people are still around me in my life, so it's important to communicate, have boundaries where you need them, but to communicate, to be realistic with the support that you need and what you expect of other people, and also to be understanding of what they expect from you. I think that's all super super important and part of like healthy communication. um, so yeah, therapy unlocked a lot for me in my journey. It was very helpful. um, Earlier this year I was in a much better place for myself than I am currently. But throughout this journey, throughout the ups and the downs, therapy has been there, especially the downs, right? Therapy has been there and been super helpful. So um, and yeah, it sometimes it's hard to see how it'll be helpful, and I understand that. But the main things, the main takeaways, like for me, and maybe it'll help somebody else, is to be open-minded about it, to realize that it's kind of like dating, and you have to put effort in, and it's gonna probably take a while to get to the right fit, and there might not be like any way to know the right fit until you just go and try, like the different styles and especially the different personalities that you'll come across. You might not know until you try. So that's a tough part of like, you know there might not be some checklist beforehand that you could say yes or no, this will work for me. You just have to go and try. um, the other thing I'll mention is, you know it seems like there's more and more options for therapy these days, and the service that I use is all virtual, remote. That has been a game changer for me, because especially when I'm in my depressive episodes and my anxiety kicks in, especially, it is so hard to get out of the house sometimes. Sometimes it's hard to get out of bed. I've done therapy sessions in bed, um, because of how bad it's gotten. And if I had to go to an office, I've been in that place before with doctors, years ago, and through my experience of like missing appointments because, I was anxious or depressed. So I'm glad that there's more options now for therapy. The online option is a great option, and I think slowly it's getting more affordable, but I know it's not it's expensive. It's expensive, and I wish everyone could have access to it. Um, I think everyone deserves access to it. Hopefully, slowly we're getting there to somehow um, support a better model for it, because it's been super helpful, and I think it'd be super helpful for a lot of people. Um, so yeah, that's my experience with therapy. Um, as always, this is a sharing experience, um, meant to just share my experience and hope people get something out of it. Maybe they learn something. Maybe they try something. Happy to hear your experience in the comments. Feel free to reach out. Um, I think the more people share their experiences, the more information we have, um, the better off everyone will be, and the easier it will be for people to find what helps them. And that's what the main goal about this is like, I don't want people to be struggling or suffering, especially if you don't have a support system around you. Um, yeah, no one deserves that. This is, things like depression, anxiety. They're mental wellness issues are conditions. It's not like, I spent a lot of time being judgmental of myself, being like, well, you can just get better, and this is like, yeah, you're just in a mood or something. It's not. It's so much more than that. I've come to realize that, and it's made it easier for me to realize I'm doing my best. Um, it's hard, and we need more resources, because it's like any other illness. People need support resources. So I hope through videos like this and sharing that I can help, even if it's one person. Um, yeah. So thank you for watching. As always, feel free to share. I'm always curious to hear back. Yeah. Thanks for watching, and talk more soon.